Understanding Judaism and Zionism, thanks to Israel Shahak's book, Jewish History, Jewish Religion, The Weight of 3,000 Years, the laws against the non-Jews following. Status. According to the Halakha, Jews must not, if they can help it, allow a Gentile to be appointed to any position of authority, however small, of the Jews. The two stock examples are commander of 10 soldiers in the Jewish army and superintendent of an irrigation ditch. Significantly, this particular rule applies also to converts to Judaism and to their descendants through the female line for 10 generations or so long as the descent is known. Gentiles are presumed to be congenital liars and are disqualified from testifying in a rabbinical court. In this respect, their position is, in theory, the same as that of Jewish women, slaves and minors. But in practice, it is actually worse. A Jewish woman is nowadays admitted as a witness to certain matters of fact, when the rabbinical court believes her, a Gentile never. A problem therefore arises when a rabbinical court needs to establish a fact for which there are only Gentile witnesses. An important example of this is in cases concerning widows. By Jewish religious law, a woman can be declared a widow and hence free to remarry only if the death of her husband is proven with certainty by means of a witness who saw him die or identified his corpse. However, the rabbinical court will accept the hearsay evidence of a Jew who testifies to having heard the fact in question mentioned by a Gentile eyewitness, provided the fact in question mentioned by a Gentile, provided the court is satisfied that the latter was speaking casually. Goy messiach lefitumo, rather than in reply to a direct question. For a Gentile's direct answer to a Jew's direct question is presumed to be a lie. Note. Characteristically, an exception to this generalization is made with respect to Gentiles holding legal office relating to financial transactions, notaries, debt collectors, bailiffs, and the like. No similar exception is made regarding ordinary descent Gentiles, not even if they are friendly towards Jews. End of note. If necessary, a Jew, preferably a rabbi, will actually undertake to chat up the Gentile eyewitness and without asking a direct question, extract from him a casual statement of the fact at issue. Money and property. First, gifts. The Talmud bluntly forbids giving a gift to a Gentile. However, classical rabbinical authorities bent this rule because it is customary among businessmen to give gifts to business contacts. It was therefore laid down that a Jew may give a gift to a Gentile acquaintance, since this is regarded not as a true gift, but as a sort of investment, for which some return is expected. Gifts to unfamiliar Gentiles remain forbidden. A broadly similar rule applies to almsgiving. Giving alms to a Jewish beggar is an important religious duty. Alms to Gentile beggars are merely permitted for the sake of peace. However, there are numerous rabbinical warnings against allowing the Gentile poor to become accustomed to receiving alms from Jews, so that it should be possible to withhold such alms without arousing undue hostility. Second, taking of interest. Anti-Gentile discrimination in this matter has become largely theoretical in view of the dispensation explained in chapter 3, which in effect allows interest to be exacted even from a Jewish borrower. However, it is still the case that granting an interest-free loan to a Jew is recommended as an act of charity. But from a Gentile borrower, it is mandatory to exact interest. In fact, many, though not all, rabbinical authorities, including Maimonides, consider it mandatory to exact as much usury as possible on a loan to a Gentile. 3. Lost property. If a Jew finds property whose probable owner is Jewish, the finder is strictly enjoined to make a positive effort to return his find by advertising it publicly. In contrast, the Talmud and all the early rabbinical authorities not only allow a Jewish finder to appropriate an article lost by a Gentile, but actually forbid him or her to return it. Note, some very early 1st century BC rabbis called this law barbaric and actually returned lost property belonging to Gentiles, but the law nevertheless remained. End of note. In more recent times, when laws were passed in most countries making it mandatory to return lost articles, the rabbinical authorities instructed Jews to do what these laws say as an act of civil obedience to the state, but not as a religious duty, that is, without making a positive effort to discover the owner if it is not probable that he is Jewish. 4. Deception in business. It is a grave sin to practice any kind of deception whatsoever against a Jew. Against a Gentile, it is only forbidden to practice direct deception. Indirect deception is allowed unless it is likely to cause a hostility towards Jews or insult to the Jewish religion. The paradigmatic example is mistaken calculation of the price during purchase. If a Jew makes a mistake unfavorable to himself, it is one's religious duty to correct him. If a Gentile is spotted making such a mistake, one need not let him know about it, but say, "I rely on your calculation," so as to forestall his hostility in case he subsequently discovers his own mistake. 5. Fraud. It is forbidden to defraud a Jew by selling or buying at an unreasonable price. However, fraud does not apply to Gentiles, for it is written, "Do not defraud each man his brother." Note Leviticus chapter 25 verse 14. This is a literal translation of the Hebrew phrase. The King James Version renders this as, "Ye shall not oppress one another." Oppress is imprecise, but one another is a correct rendering of the biblical idiom, "each man his brother." As pointed out in chapter 3, the Halakha interprets all such idioms as referring exclusively to one's fellow Jew. End of note. But a Gentile who defrauds a Jew should be compelled to make good the fraud, but should not be punished more severely than a Jew in a similar case. 6. Theft and robbery. Stealing without violence is absolutely forbidden. As the Shulchan Aruch so nicely puts it, even from a Gentile. Robbery with violence is strictly forbidden if the victim is Jewish. However, robbery of a Gentile by a Jew is not forbidden outright, but only under certain circumstances, such as when the Gentiles are not under our rule, but is permitted when they are under our rule. Rabbinical authorities differ among themselves as to the precise details of the circumstances under which a Jew may rob a Gentile, but the whole debate is concerned only with the relative power of Jews and Gentiles rather than with universal considerations of justice and humanity. This may explain why some very few rabbis have protested against the robbery of Palestinian property in Israel. It was backed by overwhelming Jewish power.